Okay, ready?
Yeah, he's,
Okay.
I think he's.
Yep, you got on air. Yeah, okay. Like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the village board on Monday, October 16th at 7 PM in the Germantown Village Hall boardroom and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present except for trustee Myers, who is excused. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Cool. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the September 18th, 2023 and October 2nd, 2023 village board meetings.
Move approval?
Second.
Okay.
But I needed some consultation from our attorney, so can we table those and?
Sure. So the information I've received is that right now we're looking to table the September 18th, 2023 meeting minutes and just approve the October 2nd. Can I have a motion in that regard, please?
I'm sorry.
You don't have backup on the September 18th, 2023 meeting. You only have,
October 2nd.
right, just October 2nd.
I move approval for just October 2nd minutes then.
Okay, motion made, and we have a second motion made by trustee Kaminsky, second by trustee Rick Miller. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? No, this is to approve the minutes, correct? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. Next item is president's report. Nothing to report tonight, so we can go to announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports, starting with committee chairs from the standing committees and trustee Kaminsky to start.
Public Works will meet in this room first Wednesday of November, which is November 1st at 6 PM.
All right, thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet on Monday, November 20th at 5:30 in this room.
Thank you. Trustee Hudson.
Public Safety will meet in this room Wednesday, November 1st at 6:30 PM.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else?
5:30.
Wednesday, November 1st at 6:30 PM.
All right, does anyone else? Yes,
Public Works will be 5:30. I was not at the last minute. It's 5:30 PM in this.
all right, thank you for that correction. Anyone else have anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Pieper.
Yeah, the Economic Development Committee will meet on Wednesday, this Wednesday, the 18th at 5:30 in this room.
Okay,
And I would also like to clarify something I said in air. Das Barrel Room is not in my district.
okay, and you're in reference to the plan commission meeting?
Correct.
All right. All right, thank you for that. Anyone else for anyone else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Jan Miller.
Good evening. I'd like to announce that the library will be closed on Saturday, October 21st, because they are going to be open for the haunted library. So if you are so inclined, please drop in for the family walkthrough. It's free and it's in the large community room. It starts at 1 o'clock till 3:30. And then they close again and they reopen for the haunted after dark area portion. And that's you must have a ticket for that, and that starts at 6 PM. So it's a lot of fun and kind of scary. So please join us.
So your recommendation would be if you'd have small children that you may not want to be
Come in the-
frightened and have, spend the night with them, being up all night, that they should come to the first session.
Right. Come to the afternoon session, as
Alright.
we have popcorn and soda. So they'll be happy with that.
Okay,
Still
terrific.
decorated.
Right, great. Thank you. Anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? All right, seeing there's nothing else, we can then go to the next item, which is citizen input. If there's anyone within our audience or anyone that has joined us via WebEx that would like to participate in citizen input, you're welcome to do so at this time. If you joined us within our audience, you can please come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record. If you're joining us via WebEx and would like to participate in this item, please make your wishes known so that the moderator can bring your information forward. Can you go one? Yep, Scott will help you.
Oh, okay. My name is Lynn Shower Bednars, and I just want to pass these out because I didn't know how many.
Thank you. I have one, thank you. That's for your.
We can share. I think they're missing some.
Okay. I called my state senators this last week in regards to this. And I had the problem with the tree. If you can see the picture, it has now grown beyond normal limits through my property. It has grown high. It's grown out almost 7 to 8 feet. It's unbelievable. And I called our 2 senators and I said, is there a nuisance law in Wisconsin? He said, yes, there is. I said, send me a copy. So I didn't want to copy the whole thing, but I copied the reasonable things that should be followed. A nuisance involves an unreasonable or unlawful use of property that results in a material annoyance, inconvenience, discomfort, or injury to another person or to the public. I'm the other person. I also marked an activity on one property causes a physical change to another's property. A nuisance is more likely to be found. This was a lawsuit that came from a nuisance law. And another one says, at the end, it says to prove a private nuisance has occurred or is occurring, it has to be continuous interference, unlawful or unreasonable interference, and interference of the use and enjoyment of the land or some right over it. What has happened here is following everything. This is a law in the state of Wisconsin. And for somebody here in this meeting to post an idea to muzzle public opinion, to me, we have a right to be heard. We pay taxes. You are elected officials. And we have a right to be protected by our elected officials. I would like this right to be protected. And you know what? The public, I had several phone calls last time I was here from the public that watched this meeting last time. They were very upset that nothing was being done. And a lot of people don't want to speak out, but they have a right to speak out. And to muzzle that for them, I think is illegal and against our rights to be heard. But I want help. One gentleman has still said he will cut the branch down at no cost to anybody, but he needs to get on their property and cut it from the trunk of the tree. I offered to even pay him for his time. I will do that to no cost to anybody. But somebody has got to, if I can use the police department to enforce this law, to give them a citation, they will not answer the gentleman's call. They won't answer. They've shut me off and blocked me from even talking to them. They've said things about me that I don't even know, and I don't care because I try to take care of my property. And this is actually unbelievable. And this tree has cost me, and I still will have to pay to clean up their leaves and clean my gutters from their trees. But this is unreasonable to have this tree ruin my property. It's spreading my trees out now. But to grow to that type of an interference when to get it fixed would be free. He will come on my property and he will cut it for free. And so I'm asking for help. No one yet has called me or cared about my situation. To most people, it might seem nothing, but I'll tell you what, that's ridiculous. It's not even right. And if it were my tree doing that, I'd pay to have it cut for the neighbor. And I want to know if the police department could issue a citation to at least allow her to have the gentleman go, he has to go on her property and cut the branch off from the trunk. That's all he has to do, and it's at no cost to anybody. I will pay him his labor, and I agreed to that. I told him I would do that because I think he's a nice guy to offer that. So I would appreciate it if somebody would take some concern for me as a taxpayer from you guys to help me out in this. You know, I'm paying $5,600 and some dollars a year to live in my house, and I want to have this taken care of. This is ridiculous. So if you could help me, I'd really appreciate, because it is a law. Both senators agreed to it and said it's a law. It wouldn't be in our statutes if it wasn't a law. It's written there. So, and I have the neighbor's phone number if anybody will help me, at least to, if they get a citation, they won't be charged for that. But I mean, I'm having it cut if they will let me get on their land, on their property and cut it. So please help me when this is the law. It's affecting the private use and it's destroying my trees. And if it gets any bigger, I'm going to have another tree in my property, and it's unbelievable. So that's all I'm saying. I've copied the law. I've talked to the senators. They want me to keep them appointed with this. And so that's all I've got to say. And the reason people get upset is because nobody helps them. If somebody would have helped me here, I wouldn't have to come here 3 times. When I called lawyers, I've called everybody, and I have a legal right. The people are defying the law. So that's all I'm saying, is to please help me get this done. And the gentleman will still so far cut that branch down. And that's all he needs, is their permission to go on his property. So help me out. That's it.
The most that the village can do for you is we can write a letter asking the neighbor to allow that person to go on your property. But there will be no citation issued to this gentleman.
Because they're not, this law.
Ma'am, the law that you are stating is for public nuisance. There,
It's wrong.
ma'am, if you look at the 4th page that you presented, you have a statement
know.
that says a public nuisance is where the general community is adversely affected by the nuisance and is not tied to the adverse impact upon a specific private property, where yours is a specific private property, ma'am.
A claim for nuisance generally arises from a condition or activity that unduly interferes with a private landowner's use of his land. That's in there. It's private. And it also, there's other things I would have to copy it. I know, because the lawyer said the same thing. And I did a real big research on that. And there's several places in that law where it mentions private or public. My property's being destroyed. You could write a letter and ask them to help. I would really appreciate
That we
it.
can ask someone from the village hall to do that and get it mailed to that person so that we open a line of communication, letting them know that there would be someone that would be coming on their property to cut that branch.
Do you want their phone number?
Sure, that would be fine.
Scott and Carol Stein-Peter.
Okay.
But that's their phone.
Okay. All right, we can do that and then,
No charge to them.
no, ma'am, I understand.
I'll take care of paying that gentleman for his labor, so
Okay,
anything you can do to help me get
Okay,
this done,
we-
I appreciate it.
that's what we'll do then. Thank you for coming. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward for citizen input at this time?
My name is Jason Jaguar. My address is W202 and 10462 Appleton Avenue.
Your last name?
Giguere. Sure. So now that the bands are finally done for the year, as far as outside's concerned, I wanted to make sure going forward that the ordinance is getting the attention that it needs and amended to be fair for all of us. It's been a long time coming, and to have to endure another year of more of the same would be unjust to me, my family, and my surrounding neighbors. Having a noise ordinance where the noise part of it cannot be enforced is a waste of valuable Germantown police time. But calling them as our only option due to the current flawed ordinance. My hope is that this is a topic that gets the attention that it deserves, so we can have a far more peaceful next year. I also like to address the wildly inappropriate comments made yet again by Jolene Pieper. She's attacked me on multiple occasions, completely unprovoked and unwarranted. I am most certainly not the only person calling and complaining about the excessive noise level from the live bands at Dows Barrel Room. But I am certainly the only one she has consistently singled out in public to take her anger out on. This is unacceptable, and I will no longer tolerate her berating me again. She has also singled out Jan Miller at the prior meeting, who was only and always been very helpful, and that she should not have been contacted, as this is not her district, but actually we found out today that it is. You sure were. Jolene has said that she has never been contacted directly by anyone about the exceeding noise level, as if to say she is unaware of it. That raises the question on why she has been there 10 to 12 times in the past 6 months, not entering the bar, but only sitting outside the bar in her car. She also stated that while sitting in the parking lot, she didn't hear any noise coming from inside the bar. Noise obviously is coming from outside the bar and from the live bands. And she is also stating that she didn't hear noise, any noise, from the outside band. And we have a bigger issue than just a noise level. She has defended Mark's actions that are not in compliance while pointing out what she thinks I'm doing wrong, as if to say I'm not allowed to express my concerns. I've always been respectful and adhered to the agenda at hand. But it seems to me that Jolene Pieper has a different agenda, which is to attack me anytime she sees fit. I've spoken to many of my neighbors about attending the meeting for support and to express their concerns as well. They've said that they are afraid of Germantown retaliation if they do so. And now I understand what they mean. No one will want to come to attend a meeting if they are subject to the same ridicule I've received by the village board member who's supposed to be fair and impartial. If I am unknowingly in violation, then I'm happy to comply. I, for one, know how to be a good neighbor. As far as where my cars are parked, there's gravel there and was when I bought my home. It has since been moved around for me plowing my driveway in the winter, but that certainly does not make me in violation or a hypocrite. Furthermore, she needs not be concerned with what goes on in my home or how many lights I have on. I have sons that work part-time, have full-time school, full-time girlfriends, and volunteer as well. When they get home from their busy schedule between 9 and 10 o'clock to an appropriate amount of lighting, they have dinner to eat, homework to do, showers to take, and repeat the process all over again. I have the right as a Germantown resident, and I'm encouraged by the village board to attend public meetings, ask questions, and express my concerns. What is not allowed and should not be tolerated is for a village trustee who is sworn to be fair and impartial to attack me, bully me, embarrass me, and be singled out for all the world to see. All the public meetings are recorded and posted on the internet, as we all know, are there for the world to see to the end of time and can be accessed by anyone with a computer to fully attack, bully, and embarrass me by any keyboard warrior that wants to weigh in. This again is completely unacceptable. If any member of the village board cannot be fair and impartial, as they are sworn to be, they should excuse themselves and make room for someone that can. While she's on the village board conducting Germantown business, she needs to act appropriately and fairly. Not doing so opens up Germantown for a defamation lawsuit, as they are responsible for her actions while she is in that capacity. I'm asking for Jolene Pieper to be formally reprimanded for defamation of my character and her misuse of her position. I also further request her to issue me a sincere public apology with the same energy that she spent attacking me while acting as Germantown trustee. I hope this is a matter that gets resolved quickly and doesn't require any further action. I could tell by your smug look on your face that you think I'm out of order. Well, I'm not the only one that shares that same sentiment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else at this time that wishes to come forward for citizen input?
Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. We heard earlier in the GGF meeting presentation about the possibility, or at least the discussion about changing comments. at the public meetings. And I think they're important to keep. Yeah, perhaps there are some things about the way in which the meetings are conducted might help. For instance, I know that some of the communities around us do their comments at the end of the meeting. And that way, the people who attend have the benefit of hearing the discussion on that moment. And you don't have to wait a month or 2 weeks before to address whatever it was that was said then. Because so often we are talking to something in an agenda packet that might be a blank page because there's no backup, or partial information, or it might even be a full presentation, but it's hit or miss sometimes. They're not always complete packets. So that's just one thought that you might want to think about. Part of the job that you have is representing us. Part of that is listening to us. There have been times when I've contacted some of you and have never been contacted back, whether it's email or phone. Many of you have, and you've seen me here before, almost 2 years or 2 years now. I tried to be respectful. I'm passionate about something, it's because I'm really angry. And we get 2-3 minutes, and that's it. And because it's a representative government, you take it as input, but you don't necessarily do anything about it in all cases. I understand that. But I do appreciate the fact of you listening. And I do hope that you think about some of the things that people who come up here with issues, take those issues into consideration and do your best to be respectful and good trustees. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Sure to no one's surprise, I'm back. Scott Effley, W159 and 10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. Last board meeting, October 2nd, I asked for the cow meeting to be videotaped. They were videotaped the last 2 years. I did ask Mr. Kreckle. People asked me where the videotape was for the cow meeting, the first one, and it's unavailable. It was not taped. So I will make the request again. Please tape the cow meetings. People are paying attention. And they don't come to meetings. That doesn't mean they're not paying attention. There are other ways to get information today, which is why newspapers are failing in this country all over. There's digital. So that's not a request from Village. I'm not a trustee. That is a general thought process out there. The advantage I have over you is I'm out in the community every day. People talk to me because I'm not a trustee. It's disadvantageous to be a trustee because people are afraid to talk to you for whatever reason. So I hear all sorts of stuff. And, it sucks. I'm sure it does. You guys have been on the board for a while. Some people talk to you, but a lot of people don't, and they really should. I say, call your trustee. They don't. I'm sorry about that. But tonight, I'm on utility advisory. Utilities are my life. I mean, Terry knows that. The water utility cash flow analysis was presented to utility advisory, and it paints a very dark picture no matter what anyone says. And Ehlers did a fantastic job. John did a fantastic job. They know what they're talking about, but we were told these were conservative estimates to look at yet another 15%, probably closer to 25% increase in water rates in 2 years, and another 5 to 10% after that, after the 10% we're going to get when we complete the water tower that's in pieces, okay? So as somebody on sewer and water, and some of you are, I'm not looking for 125% increase in water. I'm sorry, I think that's unacceptable, poor budgeting. There's a reason for it. I pointed out some of the reasons. Some people care, some people don't. But we got 69%. Now we're going to get another 9. That's 78%. You're looking at 25 or 30 more in the next 5 years. That's 105% increase in water. What are we getting for that? And I'm on the advisory board, so obviously I pay attention to that. So, I'll wait to hear what, I know Terry was looking forward to hearing from Ehlers on the cash analysis. Okay. We have a sewer analysis coming. Here's the thing I'll tell the board. We had a couple sewer increases, and Terry, you know this. I went back and looked. We had a 20% sewer increase back in 14 or 13. We had another 10 or 15% increase in 16, and now we're on a 3% auto renew. So sewer is in good shape because we've had those increases. I don't see how 100%, 110, 120% is going to work. You are going to, those of you not on sewer and water, hey, not my problem. You got 5,700 people that are going to get really angry with you if you just jack rates on water and don't do anything to try to correct it by better financial management. That's what I have to say.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Anyone else? Anyone joining us via WebEx? Raising your hand?
No one raising their hand.
All right, then if there is no one else, we can then go to, I'm sorry, I got one thing here. I got a communication that I did receive today that I need to read. And it states, hello, please explain how you plan on paying for the Grosnick property. Yes, we know it's closed door meeting in this issue, but you as a board keep saying we have no money, keep borrowing, go into more debit. We pointed out a while back the difference in prices. Didn't buy then when it was much cheaper. No, you wait until it costs more. It is a good way to spend the village money or the village borrow money. Also, a citizen spoke at the recent meeting about the same issue. Then you heard from the citizen business person who put down $1,500 for a permit to apply to purchase a property. You took his money, then told him, sorry, you didn't return his money. That doesn't say too much for our village. Now you are again behind closed doors to discuss the property on about Pilgrim and Mequon Road for a village center district. Only property we know of the old flower source, which was sold already. We see a pattern with the village. Were there any public meetings for a location for the village district center? We don't think so. Maybe it was number years ago, if that. Then you are talking of a need for another full-time deputy clerk instead of a part-timer. What happens to the full village employees review of jobs and needs? Yes, we understand that life happens, but everything the village does lately is just to fit the needs at the time instead of doing review and planning ahead of time. Stop pushing things back, make a plan and stick to it. By the way, we still don't want the dispatch moved to the county either. Some people in the government make sounds like it's a done deal. We don't see it as a savings. It will cost more down the road. We didn't hear it was a done deal yet. Please think before you vote yes to buy properties and whatever else you think we might need right now. Thank you for your time. Bill and Carol Schneider on Bayberry Circle in Germantown. It takes care of citizen input, so we then can go to the next item on the agenda, which is consent agenda. Board?
Move approval of consent agenda items A through C as presented.
A second.
Motion made by trustee Baum and seconded by Rick Miller to approve consent agenda items A through C. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion? We'll do roll call vote, please.
Trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, trustee Hudson,
Aye.
trustee Nyrider,
Aye.
trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Jillian Pieper. Aye. And village president Walter.
All right, next item on the agenda is unfinished business, starting with unfinished business item A, recreation trail and design for East Donges Bay Road reconstruction project. Village administrator.
Well, I can start out while Julie Chapman from Grafe Consulting comes to the podium. This was an item that the village board discussed at their last meeting regarding the sidewalk, bike trail plan and design. Ms. Chapman has put together a new presentation, which she's planning to go through and can, in addition to that, answer questions. I'll also point out that our new village engineer, Kevin Driscoll, is here tonight. He did also speak with Ms. Chapman, review her presentation, and is also available if the board has questions of him.
There you go.
All right, sorry, apparently can't do microphones, but I can do road construction. So this is the presentation for the final design of Donjas Bay Road. I know I've presented in front of several of you already, so I'm just going to do a brief overview of what the project entails. Currently, the project does begin at the 145 roundabout, where we will begin what is called a mill and overlay section. So essentially, it's taking off the first layer of asphalt and putting it back. And we are going to be putting in pavement marking that will convert the 4-lane undivided into a 3-lane facility. It's 1 lane in each direction with a center lane twiddle, which is also known as a 2-way left turn lane. And so this 3-lane facility will also then allow for on-street bike accommodations from the roundabout to Washington Drive. Those on-street bike lanes are basically 5 feet, and that is to the flange or the front of the concrete curb and gutter, 7 feet total if you were to look at it to the face of curb and gutter. I just don't remember all my notes. The pedestrian accommodations are only on the north side, and those are a concrete sidewalk with 5 to 6 feet in width. It does vary. As we continue through, this is the other portion that I couldn't put on the screen necessarily for Donjas Bay from the 145 to Washington Drive. Washington Drive is where our reconstruction section does begin. So as we are further east of Washington Drive, there is quite a significant area of wetland that is located on both the north side and the south side of the roadway. As part of this project, we are impacting the wetlands to a point that is more than the 10,000 square feet that the DNR does require for doing a general permit. Therefore, it is pushing us into what is called a individual permit. Individual permits basically means that you are exceeding the amount that is considered tolerable by the DNR, and the village will have to purchase mitigation credits associated with these impacts. As part of the project, we are replacing the box culvert that is within those wetland area. And so that box culvert will be installed as part of the project. Our reconstruction limits are then going to continue to Wasaki, where we'll be addressing the turning movements that are needed per the TIA that was presented for the DPW facility and the Keller development. As part of this reconstruction project, we will have on-street bike lanes. Those would be a 5-foot concrete integral curb and gutter, meaning that there is no flange line or designated line to indicate curb and gutter, and it's 5 feet in total for the bike on-street bike accommodation. This is in basically designed per FDM, which is the Facilities Development Manual. That is essentially what we use as our Bible for designing roadways. Of all options that the FDM basically lays out for on-street bike accommodations, this is option number 6 of 15. So this is still providing significant bike accommodations for bicyclists that are using the roadway itself. Then when we're looking at the pedestrian accommodations, we are connecting to the north side of the existing sidewalk, crossing Donjas Bay just on the east approach of Washington Drive, crossing the box culvert and heading due east to Wasaki. The accommodations are a sidewalk of 5 feet, which would allow for pedestrians in both directions. In terms of the accommodations, we are designing curb ramps at the Town 9 Parkway and the Keller driveway, as well as the southwest quadrant of Wasaki Road. When we look at these different options that I'm going to present to you tonight, this is basically what we're looking at is from Washington Drive to Wasaki. And I'll try to lay it out as best as possible, since I know it's a little different for some of you I've spoken to and some I haven't. So I'll try to lay it out as best as possible. So in terms of the first option, this is essentially moving forward with the design as is. So that is basically maintaining the 5-foot sidewalk throughout the entirety of the project and leaving the on-street bike accommodations as is. This would create a fluid design from 145 to Wasaki with on-street bikes and pedestrian facility of 5 feet. So this does maintain the current design schedule that we've been working towards, which I'll get into later on, but it is advantageous for a construction timeline. And as I mentioned, according to the FDM, this does meet the complete streets design for pedestrians and bicyclists. In terms of the alternative, this one minimizes the most amount of wetland impacts as much as possible, and it reduces costs in terms of mitigation credits that I had previously spoken about from the DNR. Option 2 is basically to change the concrete sidewalk to asphalt where practical. And when I mean where practical, it's the area that's highlighted in red in terms of where it says new pedestrian accommodations. Where practical does not mean within the wetland area. We're already pretty much maxed out at the mitigation credits right now that we're purchasing from the DNR. So if we were to go with any options after this one, the village would be spending more money in terms of just purchasing mitigation credits. When you look at the schedule, we can maintain the schedule as long as we get direction from the village this week that we can move forward with this design. It does have its advantages for the construction timeline as well. We're able to meet the expectations that were set forth previously. However, there is some costs that are associated with this one in terms of the asphalt to sidewalk conversion. And this is specifically just looking at it from a constructability standpoint. There's going to have to be a separate crew that comes out to actually build the asphalt sidewalk versus what the roadway is comprised of. So you might see some increased costs associated with that. Kevin asked me to kind of cover roughly how much that cost is. In the grand scheme of things, in the totality of Donjas Bay's construction budget, you're looking at maybe a 1%, if that, increase in the total amount just to change it to asphalt. I would say it's on definitely the lower end of the threshold for the construction. In terms of the third option, it's converting a 5-foot sidewalk, again, the same location in red, to an 8-foot asphalt path, again, where practical. Practical is not through the wetland area. It is past Town 9 Parkway and into Wasaki. Again, this does meet the complete streets design per the FDM. Anything larger will have an increased excavation to the south half of the roadway as we are abutting next to the new development that is coming. Their slopes coming from their property are basically right up against the current design that we have right now. So any widening that we would do would have to be towards the roadway. And that 8-foot mark is actually putting us right at the threshold of the appropriate amount of width that you would need between the face of curb and the front of the facility itself. So we're kind of pigeonholed into 8 feet and basically no further. This does have increased costs in terms of the asphalt path because of course you're paying for a wider facility. And so that again, in terms of the grand scheme of things, you're looking at basically the same amount, maybe a little bit more than option number 2. So both of them are relatively inexpensive. Again, just need to get a decision here sooner than later so that we can move forward with the design and continue on with our schedule. One thing to note is that the reduced grass terrace area for this option is also reduced snow storage. So I know that was a concern in previously talking with some of the other village members that we've been coordinating with, that snow storage was a concern on this. And so we are reducing the snow storage as part of this alternative. Option 4 is converting the entire segment of pedestrian accommodations to a path. Basically, you could blow this schedule completely. We're not even going to be finishing construction at the time of really what we want to. It really puts us in the most inopportune time frame in terms of construction, both for asphalt and concrete, but also in terms of moving into the DPW facility. So the whole reason where we started our schedule from was move-in date for the DPW facility and then worked backwards. So that's kind of how our time frame started for this entire segment. And so with this, it does meet complete streets. Again, anything larger would increase excavation to the south. It increases the impact to the wetlands that we had previously talked about. Therefore, you're paying more money in terms of mitigation credits to the DNR for impacting even more wetland than you are. Again, you still have the reduced grass terrace. We will actually have to resubmit our individual permit to the DNR, so it starts the clock all over again. So again, this really does impact the schedule of the project. But we also have to go back to the design of the box culvert itself and have to look at extending the box culvert an additional 8 feet. Cost for design and construction, you're looking at much more significant, closer to the 10% range of construction costs, at least, to build a little bit longer box culvert to accommodate a full facility for bicyclists that would be off-street. So those are the 4 design alternatives. I tried to summarize this as best as possible. So again, options 1, 2, and 3 are really maintaining our existing schedule to the best of our ability. Rafe will basically try to design, if we have to change the design for 2 and 3, we'll work as efficiently as possible to try and get that so we can maintain our schedule. But really that's set on if we can get a decision this week for this portion of the project. If we were to go with option 4, again, you can see the difference in the schedule right there and how it impacts essentially move-in date of the DPW facility. So the delayed schedule really introduces a lot of different factors. We have increased costs to bid items because you're now in more of a winter construction season versus a summer-fall construction season, which is the more opportune type of construction timeframe you'd want to do. In terms of your increased costs, it's going to be both design and redesign services, essentially. We're going to be looking at the basically the time frame for the wetland disturbance. It's also not opportune to the DNR. The DNR definitely sets specific timeframes of when we can impact wetlands, and so we're trying to abide by their schedule of when we can do that to install the box culvert. So a lot of different things are at play when we're talking about this. It's not just, you know, asphalt, concrete, path or not, no path type of thing. So we really have to try and stay within the time frame that we've been given. And then in terms of the delayed project costs, like I mentioned, there's going to be increased costs just because paving operations, you're going to need to have different additives in the pavement to build during the winter season compared to the more opportune time frame of summer or fall. Increased costs for design. Again, like I said, we have to recalculate our hydraulics for the box culvert, essentially redesign that extension, and then get into the wetland mitigation as well. And then in terms of the inopportune time frame for the wetland disturbance, you know, I think the DNR is really going to push for a specific time window of when we can disturb. So really trying to abide by what they're giving us is kind of our main focus. And then the inopportune timing for trying to move into the DPW facility is really kind of another focus of ours as well. So I guess that's what I have to present, I believe. Just again, the schedule so that you guys can see again the impacts that it would have based off of these decisions.
Questions? Thank you for laying it out like this. It makes it very
Sure.
simple to look at and more understandable, I think, comparing one to the other. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Trustee Baum?
Okay, when this came before us last time, I started asking questions and we started talking about what's the right way to do this. During that discussion, I believe we indicated that Mequon is bringing, their road is not changing, but they're bringing an 8-foot wide asphalt path along the side of their road to the intersection of Wasaki and Donjas Bay. Is that correct?
That's that is on their project list. That is not currently scheduled to happen.
But that is what they're
that is
thinking
the
of doing.
vision. Yes.
Right.
Then-
I would not say that it's even a project that is scheduled. It is literally just a plan that identifies potential locations.
It is
for-
a placeholder then. We'll
Right.
call it a placeholder.
Yes.
On the west side, our road configuration on the west side is west side of 145 is a 2-lane road with a 8-foot wide path off the side of the road. Is that what we have coming to 145?
For the bulk of Donjas Bay, it's an 8-foot path. The section directly west of 145 is actually 5-foot sidewalk.
5-foot sidewalk. Okay. So what we had started talking about was why are we introducing a different road system with the 5-foot bike path on each side and then the 3 lanes of traffic and then another pedestrian pathway, as opposed to taking those 2 5-foot bike lanes, pulling the curbs in, giving that space to green space, snow stacking space, and putting in a full 8-foot wide path that is more contingent with what Mequon is planning and what we already have west. This would be the only section of road that has the on-road bike lanes. And I don't believe west of 145 is going to be redeveloped and reconverted anytime soon to put in bike lanes out there. So is that an alternative to the designs that you have presented? And do you understand what my design is?
Yes, I understand completely. So we did not evaluate essentially 145 to Washington Drive because the pavement condition of what it is today does not justify a reconstruct. So the design that you would like to move forward with would be considered a full reconstruct of Donjas Bay from the roundabout to Washington Drive. Because the curb line would have to be shifted from where it is today in order to provide that path location. So that was not evaluated, as this is more of just a rehab and trying to provide connectivity from the accommodations provided west of the roundabout to the accommodations we're providing with the reconstruction portion.
Okay, so then the bike lanes on the side of the road are only going from Wasaki Road to Washington,
On-street
the on-street.
for the reconstruction area, but it then continues in the mill and overlay section as well to the roundabout. As of right now, how it is currently designed. So that's why we're trying to keep it continuous.
So I'm trying to, I don't remember what I saw out there when I was out there last, but from the roundabout east, has the bike lanes on the road already?
No, so a part of the project, we are milling off the top layer of asphalt
Okay,
and it's going back as a 3-lane facility. So because we're reducing it down to 3 lanes,
yes.
there's an extra 10 feet of space within the roadway footprint itself. So that's where the extra space is then just being designated to the bicyclists without having to move the curb lines. Space is already there with the 4-lane facility.
All right, I'll let others speak for now.
Other questions? Trustee Jan Miller.
Currently, and I live in the area, there are no bike lanes from,
No, what is in our plans is moving it forward with bike lanes, not today. Today, it's a 4-lane facility. Correct? You have 2 lanes in each direction.
correct.
Okay, so now wipe all the pavement marking off of Donjas Bay, start fresh in your head. We are gonna have a center 2-way left turn lane, 1 lane in each direction, and that leaves 10 feet extra on Donjas Bay within the curb and gutter that's there today. So that extra 10 feet, 5 on both sides, is then being designated to bicyclist where it is not today.
All of Donjas Bay?
From the roundabout to Washington Drive.
But it's incongruent with the rest of Donjas Bay.
That's what our proposed design has been since the beginning.
Well, I'm sorry, it doesn't make a lot of sense because the paths that, I'm not the biker Trustee Hudson is. He's been all over this road and he knows where there's a wide space, and most of the path on Donges Bay is sometimes on the north, sometimes on the south, but it seems to be mostly going west, asphalt. So we don't have a bike lane. People ride their bikes either on the road but primarily on the asphalt sidewalk bike lane. That's what they're doing. So you're reconstructing a road that really needs 4 lanes going into the traffic circle from the east to 145. If you chop that up and make it smaller, now you've taken out one of the turn lanes that makes it more efficient. We have a lot of trucks there now, and with the DPW, I think we're probably going to be doubling that, the amount of trucks. So I think that road, that Donges Bay is like it's a hill. And I haven't biked of it, but Trustee Hudson has, and he said it's hard. But you don't want to be in the road because there's too many trucks. So that's why we wanted to create an 8-foot asphalt path off the road. What if we take the bike and the curb out, just do the regular curb?
I don't follow that. I'm sorry. If you could repeat, take the
Well,
curb out.
you're putting in an extra 10 feet on the road in order to incorporate bike lanes on either side?
It's already there today. I'm not doing anything to the curb and gutter. It's staying exactly where it is today. That space is already there.
Even
Not touching the curb.
east of,
East of the roundabout.
no, east of Washington.
East of Washington, that is the area of reconstruct. I thought we were talking about between the roundabout to Washington Drive.
Yes, but I thought we were talking about the whole thing.
So the whole thing, yes, has on-street bike accommodations. That's, we're trying to, with the given amount of, I guess, real estate that we have within the roundabout to Washington portion, this was really the only option. It was mostly looking at it as a rehab, not a full reconstruct. The pavement is still in decent enough condition that it's not warranted.
Okay, so the road is good. And
Yeah.
so maybe the bike lane's there, but why don't you just make a wide path, 8-foot path?
So that's what I'm asking. This is the direction that I was given from the get-go of this project. I did not design this or decide this on my own. This is the direction I received from the village. So we're getting different direction. I'm just asking, what option do you guys want? Like, I have no problem with any of the options. It's what you guys prefer.
Village Administrator.
Yeah, and just want to kind of point out what Ms. Chapman just said, that the parameters that were given to her and Grafe at the beginning of this was looking at the money that was available as part of the project budget, looking at the traffic impact analysis that was completed, as you mentioned, Trustee Miller, that there's going to be a lot of additional truck traffic and some additional turn areas within there to determine how it could be designed to safely accommodate traffic. And then also within those traffic parameters and within the budget that was available, to come up with the best possible plan to provide for bicycle and pedestrian access. And that's what the plan option 1 that's presented is the plan that Grafe came up with, and that was reviewed by village staff as we went through the process. The goal was not to try to match what was done west of 145 on Donges Bay, and to a large extent, because trying to avoid the cost of reconstructing the section of Donges Bay between 145 and Washington Boulevard. That is an option for the board. There would be a significant increase in cost to the project, and I would point out, this project is being financed from TID 9. And I think before there were any significant increases in the project budget, we would want to look at re-update the cash flow estimates, because that TID did have relatively tight cash flows. So that's an option for the board if the board wants to provide that direction. But one of the reasons we're here tonight is to go through that and explain what the cost implications are.
And schedule.
And schedule.
Trustee Hudson.
So a couple of things. So thank you for coming in tonight and explaining this. And then I am not a biker, unless that means riding a Harley. I'm a runner, and my wife says I need to do that more often, but that's not appropriate for tonight's meeting. So I have certainly been on this section of streets many times. One of the questions I have for the area between 145 and Washington, is that imminent to take that down to 3 lanes and a twiddle, or is that at some time in the future when the road degrades further, that is what we would do at that time? That's not part of this project, is it?
So I would say that as part of our traffic impact analysis that Steve alluded to, it was recommended by our traffic engineers to reduce it down to the 3 lanes and provide the twiddle, because the twiddle is actually a safer option for left turning vehicles such as larger trucks of that nature. So it was the recommendation. I don't believe we have to force the twiddle and the 3-lane facility into the 4 lanes. I
So
think it's just the best option in terms of safety.
so thank you. So
It is an option 1 as being described.
Yes.
so from 145 to Washington, that is and that's supposed to be done when, please?
That would be done next year.
With the project.
With the project.
So taking Donjas Bay in that area from 4 lanes to 3 is, I would have to learn a great deal more about that because of the traffic flows and the speeds there. Off the top of my head, that's not necessarily something that I support. So for tonight, though, we are only deciding on what we're going to do from Washington west to Woosaki, correct?
East to Woosaki.
East, thank you.
And actually,
Thank
in order
East.
to maintain this schedule, and typically, this is not an issue that would be getting this level of, and it's fine that the board wants to, but typically this is an issue that would go to Public Works Committee and get review there, because of the questions about the multi-purpose trails and bike accessibility. It's gotten a little bit more attention and discussion, but we do need to get the design finalized and the bid packages out in December, which means that and that includes the design and the bid information from 145 all the way to Woosaki. It means the sidewalks or multi-use paths. It means the reduction in some areas from 4 lanes to 3. And this all is a process of months and months of engineering review. I sat in on a number of the meetings with Ms. Chapman and our former Public Works Director and the traffic engineers. My reaction was initially the same as yours, trustee Hudson. You know, how does going from 4 lanes to 3 lanes make traffic flow more efficient and safer? But hearing the traffic engineering experts describe it, and as Ms. Chapman talked about the the safety of the left turn lanes, and instead of having bypass lanes, a 4-lane option, you've got bypass lanes, that it is a safer and more efficient traffic flow methodology. And so that was the design that we moved forward with and presented to the Public Works Committee.
I'd like to make a motion to go with option 3 then, please. Thank you for your response.
Motion by trustee Hudson to pursue option 3 and approve. Requires a second.
Second for discussion.
Motion made by trustee Hudson, seconded by trustee Pieper. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Pieper?
I just opened it up for discussion.
Oh, I thought maybe you seconded it because you had discussion. Okay. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Rick Miller.
All right, I was pretty vocal already saying that I don't want to change the design at all. And here's a few reasons. First off, we're talking about the twiddle. The twiddle doesn't start until well after you're out of the roundabout. It's east of that. It won't affect the traffic flow through there. It'll affect the traffic flow on the turning after that on the eastbound and westbound Donges Bay, but east of the roundabout. Second of all, the wetlands are an issue. The wetlands are a big issue. So realistically, the only thing that we can do without some major costs and delays is look from Town 9 Road to the east to Wasaki Road. There's already a sidewalk proposed there, and I brought this up. Fine, we have bike paths on there. If somebody's not comfortable, you go on the sidewalk and you ride your bike. And I did it tongue in cheek, but I said, Chief, are we writing a lot of tickets for bikes on sidewalks? And he kind of grinned a little bit. And obviously, a lot of people ride on sidewalks. The other thing is, from the roundabout, actually from west of the roundabout, all the way to Washington is a sidewalk already. So this is contiguous from everything that goes just west of the roundabout on Donges Bay all the way to Wasaki Road. And that doesn't make any delays. I think we stick with the plan that was designed. I won't support it.
Further discussion on the motion to approve option 3. Trustee Kaminsky.
This has become messy only because we had a late entry into this process, about 6 weeks ago to 8 weeks ago, with the hope of creating this bike path. Up until then, everything was full speed ahead. I would love to have this contiguous with Mequon. I think it would be awesome. And it's beginning to look very impossible at this time. We're going to have to settle for something here. Here in option 3, we have the 8-foot path, but not the whole way. So then it reduces down to 5. So here's bikes coming and going on. I mean, that could be a real issue. I mean, it's not ideal. Nothing in anything we're viewing tonight is ideal. The ideal would be to have that path 8-foot contiguous with what's happening in Mequon on that side of the road. And I guess my only remaining question, 2 actually questions, is that something we can do in the future? I mean, is it something we can do in the future, or is it going to have a whole bunch of different problems involved in it? Or is it something in your mind that could be done in the future?
It is something that definitely could be done in the future. The design as is, as Rick Miller was pointing out for option 1, it does not preclude you guys from changing it in the future. There's not much throwaway cost to basically ripping out the concrete sidewalk and putting in an asphalt path later on when Mequon maybe so chooses to do theirs. So there's options after this is constructed to to continue that path.
See, my thought is because we can't find I don't want to have a halfway solution. I would like to have the right solution, and if that means we wait, we don't know when Mequon's going to do this. Might be 5 years out, might be 3 years out, we don't know. But until they do, the whole idea of a contiguous path into Mequon is kind of a moot point anyway. And, you know, I'm a big supporter of having that 8-foot bike path and doing the trail system correctly in Germantown. But at this point in time, to delay this project, which I know I have been looking at or working on for about a decade, is probably not the correct thing to do. So I am actually going to have to agree with Rick at this point. Let's just get this done the way it was originally planned, not hold it up, and then let's hopefully be able to do this correctly in the future and not jury rig it now, 8 foot here, 5 foot there, path on the road, sidewalk over there. I mean, the whole thing sounds mind-bogglingly messy at this point because it was a very late comer to the party, to be honest with you. None of this was on the radar a year ago, 2 years ago. So I'm going to support the original proposal. And as much as it pains me to do so, I think we have hope for this in the future. Right now, it's not highly traveled because it's all industrial and not particularly attractive. I think once Mequon proceeds with their path, it will become a lot more attractive because there'll be somewhere to go. And I think we should revisit it then. Now, did I dream this or did I see somebody offering $80,000 towards the trail system? Was that in one of your updates or?
That was a different part of the village.
Okay, different part of the village. So, I mean, I thought if we had that, it would be nice, but we don't even have that. So anyway, my point is, I think we have to go back to the original.
Further discussion? Trustee Hudson.
Yeah, the original plan has a sidewalk going up through an empty lot on the north side. There's nothing there. So to say that, you know, we're,
Northeast corner of Washington?
as you go up Donjas Bay from Washington to Wasaki, there is one development there. And then going up that hill is a vacant and empty cornfield. Is that correct?
That is correct,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
And so we're going to, which is on the opposite side from where we're going to do this development. So as part of this plan, we're going to put a sidewalk in a cornfield, but where we have the development occurring across the street, we're going to have nothing. Is that, no, the cornfield's on the north side.
Cornfield's on the north side.
Cornfield's on the north side. So is there a sidewalk that goes up on the south side?
Is there
The area in red is the sidewalk right now.
that is on the south side
Okay,
of Donjas Bay.
but that's just proposed, correct?
That is what is in the plan. The only question is at 5 feet or 8 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Trustee Jan Miller.
All right, there clearly isn't any, you're not putting in this original plan, anything on the north side
No,
of Donjas Bay. Okay, so you have to do the cross at Washington. Crossway.
have a pedestrian ramp in order to connect the south side, the north side with the south side. So we had to bring them across because there was not right of way available to do it on the west leg of Washington. So we're doing it on the eastern leg.
What do you mean by, what did you call it? What kind of a crossway? Yeah, it's on the road, isn't it? We're not talking about a raised pedestrian crossing. Yeah, it's on road. Okay. Sure, I've been there. I live there, around there. Not in the crosswalk. So I agree that we need an 8-foot. I think that just do it because, and this is why, you've driven out there? I don't think there's enough space for the trucks and to make the, if you hit that when you hit, coming from the east, going west, when you hit the circle, there are 2 lanes going into the circle. You can go right and you can go north on 145. 145 has absolutely no sidewalks. Am I right about that? 145 north of the circle going up to, I don't know,
Stretches of sidewalk.
uh,
There's no
By
contiguous
Weissman's-
sidewalk, but there's stretches of
by
sidewalk.
Weissman's. There's no sidewalk going up there.
There is
On
on the
Fond du
west.
Lac Avenue?
On Fond du Lac, yeah. Did I say Appleton? Sorry.
There is on the west side.
Mhm.
There is a little bit on the west side.
Yes. At different developments that have occurred, sidewalk has been required by those developments, so they're like island sidewalks.
The sidewalks that go nowhere.
Well, they're not contiguous, right?
Right. So, the sidewalks or the paths that are, west of the circle, traffic circle, are asphalt and they're wide. So why do we have to touch the current sidewalk from the circle, traffic circle going east on Donges Bay?
Not touching it.
But you want to change the road. You want to, no?
Not
What
touching
about
it.
the 3? You want to go down to,
Not touching the curb and gutter either. So everything that's near the roundabout is within the footprint of the roadway as it sits today.
then it's after, it's only from Washington
Correct.
east.
At Washington is where we are connecting the north existing sidewalk to the south
South.
proposed
Right,
sidewalk.
right. But that road that you're making from Washington to Wasaki, you're trying to put in this bike lane, right?
So back to what trustee Hudson said about, what about going back to the 4-lane undivided section?
Yeah,
You would have no bike accommodations whatsoever outside of your existing 5-foot sidewalk. So with the option of us putting in this 2-way left turn lane that's on the screen, you're taking away one travel lane and converting it into space for bidirectional bike lanes.
right.
So we're not touching the
That's-
curb and gutter. We're not touching the sidewalk.
But that's only
From the roundabout,
Washington to Waukesha.
no, that is from the roundabout
That's
to
what I thought.
Washington.
Yeah, and it doesn't look safe to me. Why can't they just ride their bikes on the sidewalk like they have been?
They can.
That is an option, that the sidewalk will be there, and as trustee
And then
Rickmiller mentioned,
maybe we can chop up the sidewalk and make it an 8-foot path, asphalt path.
We, your statement of it doesn't look safe to me is kind of, we've had engineers look at it, we've had traffic studies done on it, and they feel that this concept makes it safer, not less safe. And these are people that do this for a living. This is what we asked them to do. We brought them on as part of this cost to give us these recommendations of what is the best way to do this, and this is what they came up with. And now, because the Board of Trustees doesn't feel that it's safer, we should change it based on engineers and people that do traffic studies for a living?
Have you driven along there?
I drive there quite often, yes.
Well, if you don't have a couple of turn lanes going into that circle, I think
There'll
there's,
be 4 lanes going into that, or 2 lanes aside going into that circle.
Still 2 lanes going into the circle.
where is it going to 3?
It goes, once you get to this point here, it goes to 3 lanes. Then right there, you pick up, this gets divided into 2 lanes. You still have the striped out twiddle. Then the striped out twiddle goes to the change of color there. So you've got 2 lanes going into the roundabout. You got 1 lane coming out of the roundabout, which is what you have today.
We have 2 lanes going into the roundabout.
There. one-
Right,
No, I'm okay.
right. We just don't have to worry about bikers.
All right. Further discussion. Trustee Baum.
I just want to run this up a flagpole to get your opinion on it. If you take the existing pavement that you're maintaining and instead of putting 5 feet and 5 feet on the outsides, what if I slid the 3 lanes to the north and put an 8-foot bike path separated by a 2-foot paint stripe on the south side?
Because the 2-foot paint strip is not safe for the opposing direction bike lane. So if you were to put it all on, let's say, the north side, like you mentioned, the bicyclists heading eastbound are not protected by anything. The paint's not going to prevent a car from, hitting them. You would have to have a physical barrier of some nature. So if you guys wanted to install like a Jersey barrier
Okay,
or something.
let me play devil's advocate for a
Okay,
moment.
Yep.
I'm on a 5-foot bike path going the same direction as traffic. What's protecting me there?
It's the opposing direction is what is concerning, not the,
It's when I'm riding towards the traffic that
yes,
I need a barrier.
correct.
And that too, okay.
Yes. And that is actually per the Wisconsin pedestrian and bicyclist handbooks that we always reference.
I don't ride a bike. I ride a Harley with him.
Okay, and for both of you, do not ride your Harleys in the bike lane. It's meant for pedal bikes.
You're
not
bikers, right?
Motorized bikes.
Bikers, yes.
Phil's a biker.
Okay.
I heard it 3 times tonight. Phil's a biker. All right. Further discussion on the motion, which is to approve option 3. The only thing that I would add is, as we went through each option 1 through 4, which I thought was very well done and helped me to see a better picture of what we were proposing and what was being recommended. Each time I saw the next option or heard about it, I heard maintain schedule, additional cost. Then I heard additional cost, lose schedule. And then I heard get the DNR involved for permits for water and mitigation, which then takes the schedule and blows, way out wide, and additional costs for increased excavation and pretty much re-engineering. At this point, option 1 seems to be the best option. It maintains schedule and there's no extra cost. That's the one I'm in favor of. No extra cost and maintain schedule. We need to get the people into that building when we had proposed it because of all the other things that are tied to the Public Works building and other areas of concern with the old Public Works building. So it really needs to stay on schedule any way that we can. All the options proposed have arguable points for we could go through for a long time. Option 1 still gives us the best option for staying within cost, not increasing any costs that would require Ehlers to refigure the cash flow of TIF 9. And also, more importantly to me, maintains the schedule. Further discussion? There's no further discussion. We'll do roll call vote on option 3. I'm sorry, Trustee Jan Miller.
If I'm reading this correctly, what page is this? On your project schedule page, it says that options 1, 2, and 3 are the original, basically the original schedule. So they're going to stay on schedule, option 1, 2, and 3. 2 and 3 would have approximately a 1% or less increase in the cost.
That is correct. If you guys give us an option decision this week, we will have to redesign the curb ramps for option 3. Option 1 and 2, we just change essentially the pavement type in our plan details to be asphalt versus concrete.
Option 3 is also for extra excavation costs.
If it goes wider than the 8 feet. But yes, we would have increased cost to build an 8-foot path.
So it is the 8-foot that was requested
At extra
that we've been talking.
At extra cost.
Right.
Okay.
There is a motion on the floor.
There is, and we're going to roll call vote. I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Baum,
Nay.
trustee Kaminsky, trustee Hudson,
Aye.
trustee Nyrider,
No.
trustee Rick Miller,
Nay.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Jolene Piper? No. Village President Walter?
Motion fails.
I make a motion to approve, option one, the
Second.
original plan.
Second,
Motion made by trustee Pieper, seconded by trustee Baum or Kaminsky. Discussion. Trustee Kaminsky.
I think we had the discussion. I think we are pretty much, we have to do this. I mean, and I think it's a future project when Mequon gets their act together. We do our 8-foot path on the correct side of the road. But for now, let's keep everything on budget and on target, and let's just move ahead with this.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, trustee Hudson,
Nay.
trustee Nyrider,
Aye.
trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Nay.
trustee Pieper? Aye. Village President Walter?
Motion passes. Next item under unfinished business is item B, review of 2024 budget without Washington County funding for dispatch.
This was added to the agenda at the request of trustee Jan Miller and also signed by trustee Hudson.
Okay. Trustee Miller? Input into your request?
Yes. Was there, my input is, I didn't see, did you attach something to this?
No.
Well, the intent was to get the numbers without using the Washington County funding for dispatch to see how.
$300,000. That would be the number.
What'd you say?
$300,000. Thank you.
But-
Sorry, my wife tells me the same thing.
Out of our budget?
You would be out of
Say-
balance of 300, you'd be
But
$300,000 in a hole. You'd be proposing a budget that would not be in balance
If
at the
we-
cost of
if we
300,000.
do X, what's X?
X is to keep the dispatch.
If we keep it, so the budget is calculated now with dispatch going to Washington County.
That's correct.
Okay.
Steve is, as part of his direction from the village board, is to propose a balanced budget. So he will not propose this out of balance, but it would be out of balance by $300,000 that we would have to find additional cuts or additional sources of where that $300,000 would come from.
yeah, the reason I'm confused is because we had an additional 498,000 coming in for state revenue. And in addition, there were other sources of income that he actually, Mr. Krecklow presented at the budget meeting on Tuesday night. And there were, I don't know, maybe 3 things that you could pull from in order to do that. And that was an additional $118,000 in transportation aid and 151,000 in the TID new construction.
If you would
So
add that as
it-
part of the levy, right now, the budget was proposed at what it would be with that included or excluded. And in most cases, we've excluded that growth as part of that levy increase over the last several budget cycles.
It's a different year. We don't have to do everything the way we've always done it.
Well,
So
that's
it's-
correct, and we've
and
done that
that would
because
be-
of the more conservative nature of the majority of the board that voted for the budget in that manner.
This would increase the property tax bill on a $300,000 home by about $30 a year.
Mhm.
And that's not bad.
That's your opinion.
That is my opinion. And so I would like the board to consider that because you would be
We
from
aren't here to
Steve's
make,
report.
the committee of the whole is where we would make those types of adjustments.
Okay,
It would not be part of this village board meeting.
okay. I thought that we would be able to see that adjustment with these numbers in. And I'm looking at your October 4th public safety meeting information, Steve.
Mhm.
So I can bring that up at the
If I could,
committee of the whole.
I would suggest and recommend to the board, since there are this is a more challenging budget. And, you know, we had our first committee of the whole meeting, and there was discussion about, you know, adding to additional police and firefighters. There was discussion about dispatch. We have a committee of the whole meeting tomorrow. I'm sure we're going to talk about library reductions and hours in the library. There's another committee of the whole meeting next week where I'm sure there's going to be discussion on some of the rec programs and some of the changes that are proposed there. What I would recommend for the board is that last fourth committee of the whole meeting on October 25th to put the items that you would like to leave open for consideration to that October 25th meeting. And then you can look at, there are some options that you have. There's $118,000 in additional transportation aids. If the board wishes to increase the levy further, there's $150,000 there. And then you can have all of the items that you want to consider adding and all of the sources of funds that you have available to you, available at that one meeting, so that you can prioritize which are the most important items for you as a board of trustees, and how do you wish to pay for those.
Trustee Hudson.
Yeah, so I have the reason I put that is I have a different tact of questions and I'd ask, so do we have anything in writing from the county as to specific dates or funding that we will get from the county? Is there anything in writing about moving the dispatch at all?
We have had, yes, there is. There are also there also have been some ongoing conversations and discussions. We had a meeting, when I say we, the fire chief, the police chief, and I met with representatives from the sheriff's office, county executive's office last week, and they do plan to come to the October 25th meeting here to answer questions. And we are working to finalize some of the documents that you've been asking for so that they can be available at that meeting.
And so one of my concerns is if they cannot do this and hit their own dates, right? Our budget is immediately unbalanced because we are assuming that they are going to hit very specific dates.
That is.
And if they don't hit those dates, will they cover those costs?
That is one of the conversations, along with, we now have 2 vacancies in our dispatch, and we can't operate for as long as we said we would operate in 2025 with 2 vacant positions. And so that's another.
2025 or 24?
2024. I always get confused about what year I'm in. But you know, that creates some issues for us as far as our operational side. So those are some things where we've been having continuing discussions with the sheriff's office. I think we have some good solutions to that. But I'd just like to get those finalized, and as you said, on paper on October 25th.
Thank you.
Next item under unfinished business is item C, review Ayler's TID report by Phil Cosson for TID 6, 7, 8, and 9.
This was another item that was added by request. We do have Mr. Cosson scheduled to come on October 24th. That's the committee, the whole meeting when the tax increment districts are on the agenda, and he'll make a presentation on the status of the TIDs and respond to questions at that time.
Next item under unfinished business, review of Ayler's water rate report by John Cameron.
This is actually duplicated. I had already had this on under new business, item A. So we did get it added, but Mr. Cameron is available via WebEx, and he does have a presentation here that he can walk through with the board at this time.
So moves the board. We can go into new business. Item A, presentation on water utility cash flow analysis. Mr. Cameron.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to present virtually this evening. This is a presentation that was provided to the Utility Advisory Committee in August. And if you don't mind going to the next page on the presentation. In terms of the why we were asked to put this analysis together. So we were hired to prepare a long-range cash flow analysis for the water utility that really does a combination of a few things. Number one, puts a central plan together for the water utility that documents the past financial performance as well as just current position, takes into consideration the rate increase that took effect in 2021 and again here coming up next year. But then also puts a potential plan of finance together for the upcoming projects within the water utility and looks at what the potential water rate implications could be by going forward with that plan. It takes into consideration the full revenue requirements for the utility, which just simply means the amount of money that we need to generate through our water utility rates to operate the utility on a operations as well as on a capital side of things. We also have detailed projections modeled out in terms of cash on hand within the utility, debt coverage, and rate of return. And really where that all kind of comes into play is that, you know, the water utilities, as I'm sure most are familiar, are regulated by the Wisconsin Public Service Commission, or PSC. Anytime the village would go in or want to adjust its water rates, it has to do so through PSC's approval process. And generally speaking, there's two ways to go about increasing rates. There's a simplified rate increase and a conventional rate case. What you went through in 2021 was a conventional rate case. A simplified increase is inflationary in nature. Historically, it's been about 3% annually, although over time as inflation and interest rates have risen, PSC has adjusted that inflationary increase now to 8%, which is where it currently is for 2023. If you go to the next page, please. Just to start with some history, the last conventional case or full rate case that was completed was finalized in October of 2021. And I think it was pointed out during the public comment period that there was a two-step rate increase that Public Service Commission had approved as part of that process. The first step, which took effect shortly after the rate order went out in October of 21, was just under a 67% increase to water rates. The second step, which is just under 10%, 9.8%, is yet to be completed, and it's tied to the completion of the booster station and the elevated tower project. So what PSC in the rate order stipulated to the village is that you need to move forward with those projects, get those projects done and under service. And then the second step increase that was granted as part of this case can then take effect. It's tied to the capital additions in terms of additional depreciation and rate of return related to those two specific projects. Since that time, you've also begun work and planning for well number 12, as well as the well number 12 well house facility. You go to the next page, please. Looking at the historical cash flow for the utility on both a cash basis and a utility basis. And we like to look at both kind of coming into the long range plan for the utility for two different reasons. One is when we look at the revenue requirement for the utility, which again is the amount of money that we need to generate to operate the utility through user rates. We like to look at it, on a cash basis. Our revenue coming in and our needs to be sufficient to meet our operating and maintenance expenses, as well as any payment in lieu of taxes, our annual debt service payment, and then any cash funded capital expenses. So the purple line going across the page on the top under a cash-based method is the revenue requirements, the amount of money that we should be generating, or at least hoping to generate annually through user rates to meet the different expense categories. The orange bar going across the page is the annual operating and maintenance expenses of the utility. The salmon or tan bar that actually is fairly small to begin with, grows a little bit in 2023 with debt that was taken on in 2022, is the annual debt service payments. And then the green bar is the annual cash funded or the annual capital expenses that were paid with cash annually. So it's certainly possible on a cash basis that your revenue requirement isn't quite sufficient to meet your total revenue needs annually. And that could be because you may have a one-time capital expense that you may be using reserves to fund. But generally speaking, you want to see the blue line going across the page, which is our annual user rate revenue, match the purple line in terms of the revenue requirement. The bottom part of this page is the utility-based method of looking at the revenue requirement, which is how the PSC looks at the revenue requirement for utilities when you go in for a conventional rate case. It's also how they look at it when you file your annual report, which is due in May of each year. Same recovery of operating and maintenance expenses annually. But on the capital side, the difference between the cash-based method and the utility-based method is that while cash-based method is recovering your annual depreciation or annual debt service payments and a level of cash-funded capital expenditures, the utility-based method is recovering depreciation and rate of return. Depreciation, high levels, from a high-level standpoint, recovers the principal of an asset. So it's looking at recovering the principal of those assets that the utility paid for. Okay, the rate of return, roughly speaking, recovers the interest expense on those assets. And in the absence of any debt, so if you're paying cash for an asset, rate of return is an overall measure of financial strength and financial health, and it gives PSC when you go in for your annual report filing, and also the utility when you're looking at an analysis like this, a measure of financial strength, and really does this utility have the ability to go out and reinvest in itself in terms of future capital expenses. And what you see over time, again, as you look across the page, the purple bar is the annual revenue requirement in terms of the operating and maintenance expenses, depreciation, and rate of return. And that blue line is recovery is the actual user rate revenue. So, going back to 2018, really where the utility was just just about at break-even status in terms of just recovering its annual operating and maintenance expenses, wasn't recovering anything by way of depreciation on any assets or rate of return. And that certainly has improved with the rate increase that took effect really at the end of 21. So you saw, the first year of new rates really being in 2022, and that did a good job of really getting into recovery of depreciation expense, full recovery of depreciation expense, and the starting of some level of rate of return. And then again, here going into 2023, as you continue to add assets that we'll talk about here in a minute, really with the well house facility, without that second step rate increase and without some consideration for additional increases, we again see a widening of the gap between the revenue requirement and the total revenues coming into the system. If you could go to the next page, please. The other item that we're looking at from a historical standpoint, going back to 2018, is your reserves within the utility, which really, and then kind of a target standpoint. And that the target is the actual bars going across annually. And that target is representative of 6 months of operating expenses and 1 year's worth of debt service payments. So there's a couple of different benchmarking standards that we look at in the analysis. We look at where Moody's and Standard & Poor's, the two major rating agencies in the United States, their scorecard in terms of number of days cash on hand. We also look at Public Service Commission has a target in terms of number of days cash on hand. We're certainly cognizant of that just to make sure that you're not going to receive some letter of financial outreach from them. But the one that is the most conservative of these is 6 months operating expenses and 1 year's worth of debt service payment. And I think probably the most frequently asked question that we get when we get involved with a utility and do a cash flow analysis like this is, especially as we're approaching future capital improvement projects, is how much cash should we have? When do we have too much? When do we have too little? And if we have cash, how can we deploy it in the context of a capital improvement plan? So what you can see really going back to 2018 is you've been right about where you should be in terms of having at least half a year's worth of operating expenses in the bank and 1 year's worth of debt service. And you can see that line grow between 21 and 22. And that's really because you had debt that was issued in 2022. It's wasn't expended by the end of the year. So you have some unspent bond proceeds that'll get spent down into 23 and into 2024 here with the completion of the booster station project and the elevated tower project. So the other thing that we're looking at is just from an operating ratio standpoint, are we recovering our operating and maintenance expenses and depreciation? And that just shows, what we just talked about kind of graphically here, just isolating those two items. And we want to be at least at, 1 times in terms of coverage, in terms of we're covering 100% of our operating and 100% of our depreciation. And we're below the line with coming up above that in 2022 as that large rate increase took effect. So it is certainly having its intended effect. If you look at the next page, in terms of future capital, you've got a number of different projects that either have come or you're in the middle of or are coming here very shortly. You've got the Well 12 project as well as the Well 12 facility house. You've got the elevated tower, booster station. You've got water main improvement projects at Glenwood Park. And then other, average routine capital improvement projects, which all utilities have. And annually speaking, from a historical standpoint, that averages out at about $425,000 a year in your CIP. You did borrow $3.6 million in 2022 to help support these projects, but realistically, that goes for the tower and the booster station, and then a portion of the Well 12 well itself. It's certainly not representative of everything that you see on this list. So as we'll talk about, it's likely that the village going into next year, into 2024, that you'll have to consider a borrowing to cover the additional, or not additional, but the difference between what you borrowed and the total project costs that are shown on this list. The positive here is that you do have support from your tax increment districts to help pay for the annual debt service associated with these projects. TID 6 and 7 were identified to repay a portion of the 2022 debt issue, that $3.6 million. And in the cash flow analysis, we do have it shown that TIDs 6, 7, and 8 will help repay approximately 65% of the well 12 project in terms of the well itself, as well as the well facility. You also have, and what we do have captured in the analysis is an estimate of future water rate revenues coming in from the village of Richfield as they connect into the system and start providing and becoming ratepayers and providing some additional revenue into the water utility. So we also do have that kind of built into the cash flow analysis here as well, which is shown on the next page, if you don't mind going there. Okay. So from a high level standpoint, I'll walk from top to bottom. I know there's a lot of numbers on this page, but at the very top, we have total revenues from water rates. And you can see that taking off from a budget standpoint of 2023 and then projecting out forward over time. The things to kind of point out on this page is we are assuming that the second step rate increase will take effect in 2024, really as those projects are completed and come online. What we're showing is the need for an additional water rate increase, conservatively of 15% in 2025. With another, at this point, this would be considered a simplified increase in 2029 of 8%. But again, Public Service Commission annually sets the percentage increase for simplified rate increases, and that comes out in February of each year. So it's something to kind of point out that as of right now, that's a simplified increase. Doesn't mean by the year 2029, it will be, I think, if interest rates come back down, if inflation comes back down, it may go down closer to the 3%. So what we're seeing is you may not be eligible again for a simplified increase until 2029. From a cash flow standpoint, what we also have built in here is some additional increase to user rate revenues from the village of Richfield. We also have tax increment district revenue coming in to support the 2022 issue, as well as to support the potential debt issue in 2024 between TID 6, 7, and 8. And that is reflected in the cash flow analysis. So we have total revenues towards the kind of the top of the page. We have projected budgeted and then projected operating and maintenance expenses inflated out at 3% a year, going across the page annually, as well as a payment in lieu of taxes that goes from the water utility to the general fund. So your total revenues minus your operating expenses, your pilot payment leaves you a net before you make your debt service payments. You have existing debt, and then we've got new debt coming online. So if debt were to be issued in 2024, the first year of principal and interest payment would be in 2025. So we have that shown here in the cash flow analysis as you kind of make your way down the page. And then we have also built in, after you make debt service payments, a level of cash funded capital expenses out through 2007 that ties to your current capital improvement plan for the water utility. Beyond that, in 2028 and out through 2032, we have just a rough placeholder at this point of about $350,000 a year. Just recognizing that if we show zero, knowing you haven't gone that far yet in your CIP planning period, if we show zero, it would show, too rosy of a picture potentially, and we know that every utility has cash, capital expenses year in and year out. So this is a placeholder based on the current CIP and where you've been historically. The net annual cash flow then is shown below, and that's simply the function of total revenues minus total expenses. So this would put the utility on a pathway to continued sustainability. I know obviously you went through a very large rate increase in 2021 with a second step to come in 2022, but this is more conservative in terms of the increase than what Public Service Commission is projecting as part of the construction authorization process relative to the Well 12 well house facility. And that's because if you go to the next page, what we're looking at is a couple of things on this page, and I'm actually going to start at the bottom where we're looking at projected rate of return. So Public Service Commission, when you go in for a rate case and you file your annual reports annually, again, as I said, they're monitoring that rate of return, and that really, the rate of return just simply stated is the net operating income of the utility as a percentage of the undepreciated assets in the ground that the water utility has paid for. So their benchmark standard right now, if you were to go in for a rate case, they would push you towards their benchmark rate of return, which is 6.5% currently. When you went in 2021, it was lower. It was about 4.9%, and that was just a function of where the interest rate environment was at that time, and overall inflation. So what we're proposing in this case is to deviate heavily from PSC's benchmark rate of return because you have revenue coming into the water utility from the tax increment districts to help support the projects that we just went through as part of the analysis here. If you didn't have that extra cash coming in, it would be very difficult to convince PSC that we can get by with a lower rate of return. But because we have this extra cash coming into the utility from these tax increment districts to help support these project costs, we can demonstrate that we can get by with a significantly lower than benchmark rate of return and still see good positive cash flow year in and year out within the water utility. And furthermore, we project out that we can meet the debt coverage ratios for existing and proposed and potential water revenue bonds within the utility. The top part of the page shows just that targeted and projected number of days cash on hand relative to a target. So that first line where it talks about target working capital Eller's standard, again, that's at 6 months operating expense and 1 year's worth of debt. And you can see that we are, when you compare that target to the actual number shown on the bottom part of that green piece, we do see some red there going across the page. So we do actually dip below 6 months operating, 1 year's worth of debt. But it's a point where we're trying to work back to that number. We're trying to get to a position where the utility is, we're being cognizant of the rate increases that might be needed, but still putting the utility in a position where we're self-sustaining over time. In terms of, if you go to the next page, kind of the impact to the average residential bill, looking at this on a quarterly basis, going into 2024, if you look at where you are currently, the average residential customer using 12,000 gallons a quarter pays just on the water side of your bill. So you might be thinking about your bill in total between water and sewer. This is just the water portion of it. It pays about a little over $71 a quarter for water service. Going into 2024, if you had that 9.18% increase that goes into effect, that would be an increase of $6.54 to the average residential customer's bill, or about $26 for the year. If you then had to do a 15% increase in 2025, that would result in an additional increase of $11.67 to the water utility quarterly bill, which equates to about $46.69. And then you can see the 8% in 2029. So from a summary standpoint, if you go to the final slide, and then I'm happy to turn it back over and answer any questions. One of the recommendations would certainly be to consider water revenue bond issue in 2024 to finance the well house facility costs, as well as the other projects that are listed in your capital improvement plan for next year. Certainly move ahead with the step 2 rate increase that was already approved, but really as those projects are finalized, put those rates into effect, and then move forward with a conventional rate case for 2025. And realistically, what that means for the village is that you're starting that process relatively soon, because it takes about a year to get through to have new rates in effect. So that is something that will have to be taken into consideration, relatively soon. And I think the biggest thing here on this slide, from a planning standpoint, is, for us and village staff, to get in front of Public Service Commission staff, really at the outset of a conventional rate case, not at the end in terms of when the case is being filed, but really at the very beginning of the process to walk through this cash flow analysis and just try to seek buy-in for a lower rate of return, and getting them to understand the TID revenue, that is coming into play to help support the debt service. And that really is going to be crucial to setting the stage for a good approval process working with PSC. Beyond that, then this is something that will have to be actively managed as it is right now. But you now have a long range plan set up. This is certainly meant to be kind of a living, breathing document that gets updated, possibly annually, if not every other year, to kind of bring back forward to see where are we at, where are we going within the water utility. So with that, I'm happy to turn it back over and answer questions.
Board question? Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, the first question that comes to mind is pretty obvious, but that projected increase in 2025 at 15%, can that be spread out over multiple years? Possibility.
The short answer is no, because that's because of the Public Service Commission and their process for going through a rate case. So when you go in for a rate case, it's looking at booking in your projected operating and maintenance expenses. You're also needing to book in the assets that you're adding in that particular year, and that goes to the recovery then of depreciation and rate of return. So you don't have the ability to take those assets and phase them in over time. They're looking at what are you doing, when are you adding it, and it's really a prescriptive format for calculating what that rate impact is. A little bit different than on the sewer side.
Okay.
Trustee Ball.
That's what got this board in trouble years ago, is we didn't want to accept that 15%. That was way too high. So we gave up. We didn't pass it on. Yeah. Well, but then we came up with the next 8%, and then it was 23%. Well, we're sure not going to do 23%. Then it went another couple of years, and it's 35%. Oh no, we're not doing 35. So we just got to keep our eye on the ball, and it's going to be something we're going to have to pass. Is that whatever that is at the time, we can't not pass it because we think it's too high. That's what got us in trouble in the first place. I also went down that road. Why can we not do it over multiple years instead of just 1 year? Same problem we had in the past. The TIF districts paying into the program, that is a one-time payment or is that
That's
yearly?
That's ongoing. So they're paying a portion of the debt service. The TID districts are paying a portion of the debt service for those water improvements.
That's all they're paying is the debt service.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
If I could just interject very
Mhm.
quickly, one thing to trustee Baum's point about and it is unfortunate we can't phase these increases in a little bit more gradually, but because people do notice a 15% increase on their bill. But if you take the 11-year period that Ayler's analyzed from 2022 to 2032, and all of the increases included in there, it averages out to 3.2% per year. Which is I think, especially given the age of our water utility and some of the infrastructure challenges we have is pretty reasonable.
That's parallel with the increase that they've stated for the expenses is a 3% per year increase in expenses.
Other questions? Trustee Chan Miller?
Hey, John, thanks for the presentation. What are the average revenues are estimated to be? What are, and when?
Your average annual revenue for 2023 is approximately 3.7 million. 3.5 million of that comes from water utility revenues. You've got approximately 47,000 in interest income, 80,000 in other income, and then the TID portion of debt coming into 2023 is just under 90,000. So that's how that breaks down.
For 2023. Okay.
For 23, correct.
Other questions? Trustee Chan Miller, are you,
I'm good.
okay. Trustee Kaminsky?
When I look at things like operating and maintenance, so much of that is set in stone. Am I correct? There's really not much we can do. We have to treat the water, we have to pump the water, and these are all set expenses. So really, when they look at rate increases, they look at how to run a water utility properly. Am I correct? And this is what's required. So we don't really have wiggle room in something like this to say, hey, let's put off doing X, Y, and Z. I mean, these are things we have to do for our community. Now, please jump in and tell me if I'm wrong or if there is some place in here that there are savings that I don't see. Because when I look at the water utility over the years, these are set expenses and breakdowns are going to continue to happen. We're going to have to continue to repair them and replace pipes. And there's just no wiggle room in any of this.
That is correct. The process to go through a rate case is a very prescriptive process with Public Service Commission.
I think it's important for the community to know that, because if you don't understand how this works, somebody could say, hey, you're spending too much money. But if you want water, this is like this is what it takes, unfortunately.
Run a utility by state standard.
I guess when I look at these rates, they don't seem extreme, these percentage bumps, when you look at it over the years. And to Trustee Baum's earlier point, if you, on your slide here that I think went back to 2018, if you could have gone back an additional 5 years, you would have really seen the story that David Baum and I lived through. And it was an uphill battle to try to get any increases done at that time. It truly was. There were people on both the committee level and this board level who refused to budge on those rates. And this is what we're paying for today in having to have these bigger jumps. And we can't let that happen again.
Any other questions
Is this
for Mr. Cameron?
information?
Trustee Pieper?
Is this informational or we're not voting on anything right now? correct?
No, it's just a presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions for Mr. Cameron? No other questions? Anything else to add, Mr. Cameron?
Nothing further.
All right, we appreciate your time and your presentation and spending some time with us tonight. So thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Next item under new business is item B, authorization for We Energies easement in Town Line 9 Parkway for new DPW facility.
I'll introduce this and I'll also may be willing to phone a friend here if there are questions with our new village engineer. But this is a request to grant We Energies an easement across some village-owned property for the new Public Works facility. It has been reviewed by Grafe Engineering as well as Kevin and the village attorney. We're recommending approval.
Motion to approve new business item B for authorization for We Energies easement in Town Line 9 Parkway for new DPW facility.
Trustee Pieper making the motion, trustee Baum seconding. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Trustee Nyrider.
Recommendation asked about the village attorney reviewing it. Brian, have you looked at this or reviewed this?
Yes, actually a couple times. Once prior to Kevin's arrival, and then Kevin indicated he had some additional concerns that we've looked at, and I'm actually working on some slightly tweaked language to address those concerns, but the bulk of the easement is fine.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion, trustee Jan Miller.
I'm not familiar with We Energy easements, but do we just offer them the land, the 80-foot? What happens? Do we get any money for this? I'm asking.
No, this is for our service.
For DPW.
Right. So it'd be just like if they ran a line to your house.
Okay.
That you would basically get for free or give them for free because it benefits you. If
Gotcha.
this was a transmission line that served other properties, it would be a different story, but it's just to serve us. So.
Okay. Singular. Okay, thanks.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item under new business is item C, modified deputy clerk, village clerk position from part-time to full-time.
I'll move approval.
Motion made and seconded, made by trustee Kaminsky and seconded by trustee Baum. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, I'll just mention that this came through general government and finance tonight and was forwarded with a positive recommendation.
All right, thank you. Further discussion on a motion to approve. Trustee Hudson.
So we're making a part-time job and we're turning it into a full-time job because we have a person that's going out on FMLA and we don't know when they will come back. And then is the second position, the position that we are now expanding to full-time, is that going to stay a full-time position forever?
This was actually a recommendation that was included in the 2024 budget that was presented to the village board, that this position be made full-time. And at that time, I didn't know that the other full-time person was going to be going on leave for an extended period of time during election season in 2024. But when we hired our new village clerk and talking about some of her concerns to address exactly this issue, that we have some backup in that function. If you recall, historically, the village did have two full-time deputy clerk positions. We did look at reducing it to a halftime position. But I think number one, because of the workload, number two, because of the need to have a backup for just the situation that we're currently facing. And then third, I'll mention that we have advertised for a halftime position extensively and have not received any qualified applications for it. So we've not been able to find someone to do it on a halftime basis. And for those reasons, we included, though, this position is full-time in the 2024 recommended budget. The reason that I brought it before the board tonight was that we did find out subsequently that Casey Miller, the other individual in the full-time position, is going to be going on leave starting in February and likely going through April. And we do have to have another qualified election professional in order to run the elections effectively next year.
So the answer to the question is yes.
Yes, yes. I'm sorry, that was a very long answer. I should have answered short, but yes.
And when did we have 2 full-time village clerks, please? How long ago?
Giving a little bit more of the history.
Just a date would be fine.
I'm trying to remember of the date. It was, the last time we had a village clerk was the last time that we had 2 full-time deputy clerks. We combined that function with finance in 2021, I believe it was. And then we merged some functions, and this kind of completes the separation of those functions.
Thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, trustee Hudson, trustee Nyrider, trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Piper,
Aye.
and village president Walter.
Motion passes. Next items on their new business are closed session items, items D, E, and F. Starting with closed session item D, acquisition of Grossnick property located at North 116, West 15843 Main Street, and West 157, North 11593 Fond du Lac Avenue. The village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.85 subsection 1, subparagraph E, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating when competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate. New business item E is a strategy concerning acquisition of properties in the village center district, approximately around Mequon Road and Pilgrim Road. The village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating when competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate. And new business item F, which is village official performance. The village board may go into closed session as per Wisconsin statute 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph F for the purpose of considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personal problems, or the investigation of charges against a specific person, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations, and then may re-enter into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate. So I take a motion to
Go into closed session for new business item D, E, and F with the following people here. Attorney Sajak, I'm guessing, village administrator, and I'm guessing we can let the clerk go.
There would also be a further requirement to include individuals from Gray Wolf for item
Individuals
E.
from Gray Wolf for item E, and Jeff Retzloff, my best friend, for item D
The
And-
next,
and E.
the next suggestion that I would ask for within your motion, if you so move would be to take item E first.
And in my motion, I also am taking item E out of order and putting that first.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Pieper, seconded by trustee Baum. Is there any discussion on that motion to go into closed session as mentioned? Trustee,
She didn't name us. Does that mean we can leave?
she said us, but not by name. No, she didn't.
And trustee Hudson may go.
And ride his bike. Is there
Just kidding.
any further discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, trustee Hudson, trustee Nyrider,
Aye.
trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Pieper, and village president Walter.
All right, motion carries. Before we go into closed session, our next village board meeting will be on Monday, November 6th at 7 PM here at the Village Hall Boardroom. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you all for watching, and have a good night. Please turn off your microphones for several minutes to wrap up and let the person that's handling our on-air business wrap things up and take off. So several minutes of recess before we go into closed session.